16 days away from the NFL draft. We're getting more and more into April here, as the Indianapolis Colts will have a big decision on their hands as to what they are going to do with the 26th pick overall. I'll go into that as we go into mock draft April leading into the draft. And I'll go into 3 of my mock drafts that I have done myself to give you an insight into what I want the Colts to do and what I think that they could potentially do. I've done a lot of research into this. I've done about 15 or so of these mock drafts on the Draft Network. I'll leave a link in the description that you guys can go and check it out. I think it's a great system to really look into these mock drafts in depth. They'll give you in-depth analysis of all the players so that you can look at that within the app so you don't have to go back and forth between different pages like some of these other ones. But jumping right into it here, the first mock draft that I did 3 of them. I actually did about 15 or so. Some of them were kind of duplicates. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have different first round picks for each time. So that's really what I wanted to do today. I picked 3 of probably my more favorite ones, and I'll go into them a little bit. And without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and get started on that. So my first mock draft, and what the system does is it will project what players will go to each team based on their needs. And I only picked for the Colts, and I did through 3 rounds. So all the way up to the Colts' 3rd round pick, because after that, that's just a little bit of a guessing game, like I've said in some other podcasts. So I went first 3 rounds and did some research of all the players that I picked and had a reason for why I picked all of the players, and I'll get into that as I go. So the first mock draft, pick 26, had Christian Wilkins fall to the Indianapolis Colts, or fall to me where I could select them. What I thought was interesting about that, and a lot of these mock drafts that I did, was Dexter Lawrence was picked before Christian Wilkins. The 2 Clemson guys, 2 defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen. But I think, without a doubt, that Christian Wilkins is better. And I don't necessarily think that he could fall to the Colts at 26. However, I will pick it for this circumstance. And I think that this is a guy that if Ballard is looking at all to trade up for somebody or something like that, that this could be one of the guys that he's looking at. He has 16 career sacks, 192 career tackles. He's a senior. He's 23 years old from Clemson. That is an impressive resume to me, that not only has he racked up all those tackles, but he stayed healthy. He's had a few, little injuries, but nothing severe as he's built his career at Clemson. He's a 6'3", 315-pound defensive lineman. So he's NFL size, NFL ready, just kind of like your Dexter Lawrence. They've breed him different down there in Clemson, I guess. But they are huge guys that I've already said, NFL ready. They could step in. If you get Christian Wilkins, he could be a starter for you right away, and he really could be your next answer there at defensive lineman for the Colts. That has kind of really been a revolving door the past 3-4 years or so. So you look at that, you look at him, he's a locker room leader. He was a big-time leader at Clemson. Obviously, he got more of that role in his junior and senior year, but he was that guy to step up and be a vocal leader for the defense, which is certainly what you're wanting in your first-round pick, to step in there and make an impact and not just be, your shy kind of guy, even though those guys can fit into what Ballard is kind of molding here. That I think if you get another locker room leader guy, this could be a great pick for you. He stays under opponents' pads. When you look at his film, he's just a powerful, powerful presence. And he just uses his all 315 pounds and powers through guys. He can split double teams. He can even get around the edge. I've seen a couple times. So it's really something that you like. The 16 career sacks you like. That's more than some of the other guys that are falling around the 26 pick. So that's something you really like. The cons were he kind of had some issues with fatigue. I think that his stamina at times could be a little bit better. I think that going into an NFL program and the NFL workload will, intensify that. And, some of the fatigue and stamina issues will kind of get better as he grows as a professional athlete rather than just in college. And I think that, you look at it, he gave up some, kind of gave up sometimes on these double teams. And I think that that's something that, if he just drills and they're drilling into him that, don't give up on these plays. And he's really fighting and he's, figuring out the NFL way, then those kind of issues can go away. And you saw kind of more of those when you're looking at his cons that, kind of some of these things that aren't red flags at all, that are just going to be cleaned up as he goes into the NFL. So with the first pick, Christian Wilkins, I don't know if he's going to be there, but he was in this mock draft. And honestly, probably 4 or 5 mock drafts that I saw, he was there. And I picked him a lot of times, but I'm not going to go into more that I picked him first round because that's boring. But we'll go in to the second round here. And what fell was A.J. Brown. I've already talked about how much I like him. Even though I think that still too high for Ballard and picking a wide receiver in the draft, I think that A.J. Brown is one of the better wide receivers in this draft. Everybody's talking about Metcalf. You look at him, but A.J. Brown has a impressive career tape, has impressive film. He was a junior at Ole Miss. We had 3 seasons there. He had 19 career touchdowns and 11 in 2017. He had 85 catches in his 2018 season, even though he didn't have necessarily as many touchdowns. He is not necessarily a big wide receiver, but he's 6 foot, 226 pounds, definitely an NFL size receiver. He had a 4.49 40, which raises a little bit of question, especially for a guy that is a yards after the catch receiver, kind of a player, a receiver that makes plays in the open field. I think that that could be a little bit better, and I don't necessarily like to just look at the 40-yard dash time and, say that's how fast this person is. Well, no, but you look at that and have a little bit of questions about it, but he's extremely competitive. He's a developed route runner. He's I think an underrated route runner. He's, you look at his tape and he, just gets flat open. He's just wide open a lot of these times. And some of that could be busted coverage, but I think some of that is his route running and ability to find the open spots on the field. And I think that that's really important for players coming out of college to develop as they go into the NFL, to find the open spots on the field. And Andrew Luck will certainly do that and find that's what makes TY so great is he is a great route runner. He's kind of an unorthodox route runner, but he finds open spots in the field and he works with Andrew and he knows Andrew, and Andrew is willing to do that with any of his receivers, not just TY. So I think that is something that could be great. And that's why I really like, A.J. Brown. He's also an established blocker. He's not afraid to go out on the edge and, crack back on some linebackers. I've seen him do that. And especially, pick up the corners as maybe the running back's coming off the edge or he's setting up a screenplay for one of his other wide receivers. So I really liked him. The one thing that maybe you could look at with a little bit of question was he kind of disappeared in the LSU and Alabama games. So obviously the bigger games of the season last year for Ole Miss. So that raises a little bit of question, is he ready for the big time? Is he ready for the big stage? I think he is. Those were some talented teams that had some better secondaries. So I'm not going to put that completely on him. Although if he does come in the NFL and if he comes to the Colts, he's got to step up. In those big games, he has to be there. So I look at that. That's one thing I can point at. I can also point at his 40-yard dash time. It's not the greatest. And while he was at Ole Miss, obviously kind of Metcalf was their number one. I think that A.J. Brown was kind of flip-flopped between 2 and 3. He'd play a lot of slot, so we didn't see a lot of press coverage there at Ole Miss. So going into the NFL, it's a lot more press coverage. And if you're, he could, still be in the slot position, but he's still going to get pressed by that nickel corner. So that's going to be something that he's going to have to adapt to. And maybe that some of the other wide receivers in the draft are a little bit better at, kind of like your N'Keal Harry's. He's more of an established press breaker, if you will, of press coverage. So looking at that, but going into round 2 here, the 59th pick, Juan Thornhill. He had 13 career interceptions. He's a Virginia safety. He spent 4 years there. He had 98 tackles in his final season with Virginia, which is a lot. I think that you're looking for a guy and looking for a safety that can be an impact player like that. So 98 tackles. And if Ballard is looking for that box safety, a safety with 98 tackles, that could definitely fit there as your box safety, even though you look at this guy and he doesn't necessarily fit that mold, but he still had 98 tackles. So maybe that could be something that he could adapt to. He's he's an NFL size corner, I'd say. 6 foot, 205. I think maybe he could put on a little bit more weight, put on a little bit more muscle as I go into kind of his narrow frame and how that's kind of hindered him last season because, he had some issues with some bigger running backs and some missed tackles, going at their feet, things like that. So maybe if, he put on a little bit more muscle, put on a little bit more body weight, that he could fit the mold more for maybe that box safety that you're looking for. But he's a foreigner cornerback. So you look at that and you think, well, more of a pass guy. He does really well in zone. He matches up against tight ends pretty well. He can run with them. He had a 4.42 40-yard dash, so definitely a guy that has some speed to him, so he could keep up with some of your faster receivers. So that's something that is nice. How will he match up with Malik Hooker? I'm not really sure. I think that some of the other safeties in this draft could match up a little bit better with Malik there. I think you're Jonathan Abram. I think I'll have him in the next mock draft. But he's somebody that could be there at 59. And, you're looking for a safety. This could be the guy. Round 3, and this was kind of the one I picked because there weren't really a whole lot there at this pick. And I think that without bringing in a free agent, I think that you still have a need for it and that you could take it here at round 3. And that's running back. Devine Ozigud. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. He's a Nebraska running back. He had spent 4 years there. He was their bell cow last year. He had 12 touchdowns and 1,082 yards. So he had a lot of production. So that's something that you really look for. And being in the Big Ten, there were some good teams within that conference. So looking at what he did was a great thing. I think that he kind of fits what you had when you had Frank Gore. He's a big-bodied runner. He's a patient runner, big back, thick frame. He didn't run the 40-yard dash in the draft or in the combine, so don't have a 40-yard time for him. But he had some long touchdown runs. He had a touchdown run of 40, 60, and I believe 70 yards last season. So looking at that, maybe he doesn't have the speed like Marlon Mack, but maybe you need more of a workhorse. Maybe you need a bell cow. Maybe you need that guy to come in there on the goal line and give it to. You tried with Robert Turbin, that didn't work out. Maybe you get this guy in the 3rd round, and that's what what you're looking for, because you really don't have it. You have Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines, and Jordan Wilkins, and those are more smaller guys. So, maybe that's what they do. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I don't really know how I feel about picking a running back that early, but that was there. So that was the first mock draft. And like I said, I'm only going to go through 3 rounds because it's going to take up too much time, number one. But number two, that's just getting kind of more into the guessing game, in my opinion. So moving on to the second mock draft here, and one that I've gotten a little bit of criticism about in the comments was, and this one I picked more because I didn't, Tillery was taken, Dexter Lawrence was taken, Wilkins was taken, your N'Keal Harry was taken, Byron Murphy, the cornerback from Washington. I'm going to go into just a little bit here because I've already talked about him. He's probably my favorite cornerback in the draft, and that's kind of probably why I like him so much. But there's also some things that you look at, he's only started in 20 career games. Maybe he's not as established as you'd want there as a first round pick. So I can see the criticism of it. I can see the speculation about it. And I definitely hear that. I'm not saying that this is my favorite pick for the 26th spot, but I do like him as a player. And he for sure is a first round pick. And, if that's with the Colts or not, he's going to get picked up. And I think he'll probably get picked up before the Colts there at 26. But he's a big presence there. And they knew that in his time at Washington, that he only had 87 career targets. 20 of those were pass breakups, and another 7 were interceptions in his 2 seasons there at Washington. That's pretty good. And yeah, he's going to have to step it up and play a way bigger role as he goes into the NFL. But this guy can play. He plays the nickel spot really well. He hits like a safety. I think he's ready to go into the NFL and be a player. You look at his tape, throw it on, see what you think. Some of you will agree with me, some of you won't. So that's my deal. But I had Byron Murphy the first round of this second mock draft. The second pick that I had was safety Jonathan Abrams from Michigan State, who I've talked about too. He had 90 tackles in 2018. So another guy that had a lot of tackles, just like your other safety last round. So I think that could be something. He only had 2 career interceptions. So looking at that, he did play a lot of zone and a lot of coverage, but he was put into the box. He was kind of mixed around a little bit. So I think that could be a good thing, that he can be versatile, but he was more of that box safety. He plays like an extra linebacker. And I think that could be huge as the Colts look to really establish their run defense, is that this guy could come up, and as Malik Hooker is more your safety valve as your deep threat guy, you have this guy come in and he can play your extra linebacker. He can match up with your tight ends. He's got, he's 5'11", 205. He can match up with those guys. Maybe not, your Travis Kelce. I think you're looking for a guy to match up with Travis Kelce in the playoffs, because that's really what you want. Maybe Jonathan Abram is a player because he did play a lot of tight ends in college. You look at his film, and when he did play like man on man, it was a lot of times with the tight ends because he was put up, and then they had their other safety kind of fall back, is kind of what Malik Hooker would be, that safety valve there. So Jonathan Abram, I liked him. There were some cons there. He needed some better anticipation. I think that he could read the quarterback's eyes a little bit more. He was attacking the ball after it was thrown rather than reading what he thought was going to happen. So I think that he can learn more as he gets into the NFL. There were some issues with some missed tackles, but he also had 98 or 90 last year. So I'm not really too big on that, but I do like Jonathan Abrams, and I would be happy with that pick there at 34. I think that, with Clayton Gathers, you have him back on a 1-year deal. You're still looking for that long-term answer there with Malik Hooker at safety. And if you wanted to take it that early, Jonathan Abram would be one of your better safeties in the draft. So you could look at that. Looking at the second round pick for the Colts in this draft was Jeffrey Simmons. And this guy is, I don't know what to make of him. He's really a top 15 talent as far as his talent on the field. He's NFL size, 6'4", 301. But there are some red flags that you throw up. In 2016, he had a fight off the field with two women. There was an issue there. There was, arrests and allegations made. It's kind of cleared of him now, but you look at that, that's not really a great sign. Although Ballard is known for giving people second chances. That was in 2016. Maybe he's grown up. It looks to be like he's made some steps in the right direction. So maybe he's getting a little bit past that. But the other red flag is during a workout in February, tore his ACL, and he's out for a while. So that's why I'm saying here with the 59th pick, if he falls this far back, which I still doubt it. I mean, I'm surprised he fell this far back. You could look at this maybe as your 34th pick too. Do you have enough faith in this guy? Is this guy one of your, going to be one of your pass rushers moving forward, or your interior guys on defense? Is he going to be able to be your answer that you can, kind of put aside, let him come back from his injury and step in and try to, make something of himself? Or are you just going to pick guys that are ready now and not go for it? But you're not going to get a lot of chances at a top 15 talent. And I think that this guy really could be. So, and I think that Ballard's already known that because he's already got a visit with the Colts. He's visited. I don't necessarily know what that means. The Colts visit with a lot of guys pre-draft, but this is one of the guys that came to the Colts facility and looked around. So take that as you will. They have him on their radar. So it's not just me pulling somebody completely out of random. This is one of the guys that the Colts do have their eyes on. So look at that. And the third round pick was Terry McLaurin, a wide receiver out of Ohio State. His hometown is Indianapolis, hometown kid. So that would be great if he could make his way back. A great thing about him is his 40-yard dash, a 4.35. This guy's really fast, and that's always what you're looking for at wide receiver. You're looking for that guy that could really be the burner, and you have it with T.Y. Hilton. And if you had another guy, you tried it with Philip Dorsett, but he just didn't work out, obviously. But maybe Terry McLaurin could come in and be your answer. He had 11 touchdowns in 2018, so he's used to catching the football. He only had 35 catches for 701 yards. He wasn't their number one wide receiver, but he was a presence in the red zone, and he did have some big plays. So you look at that. He's an NFL size. He's 6 foot 208, so not your N'Keal Harry size or AJ Brown, but he's bigger than TY. He can go in there and be a presence at wide receiver. He had crisp angles and cuts, I thought, in his routes. He looked like a developed receiver. He looked like he could go in there and get off the line. He can beat press coverage. He can be an NFL player, and I think that he could, be a great pick there. I don't think that he's, a first or second round pick, but for the Colts there at 59, he could be somebody if you're looking to upgrade your wide receiver. I think with all the other receivers kind of there, he would be the one that stands out to me. The things that he could work on, he's a body catcher. There were some issues with some drops and that balls that kind of went through his hands and he caught on his shoulder pads a little bit. So that could be something that could be worked on. He isn't a very good run blocker. So, that's not really a great thing, especially if they're looking to pick up their run game here going into the 2019 season. So a couple of things that, are a little wrong with him, but he's a third round pick and not a first round pick. So you don't expect a whole lot. But going on to the third mock draft here is the first one I picked here, Jerry Tillery. This is a one that makes a lot of sense for me. I think he's going to be there at 26. I think that he makes a lot of sense for what the Colts are trying to do. I think this is probably a fan favorite. What the majority, if I made a poll on Twitter for who I wanted, for who Colts fans wanted to pick in the NFL draft, I think that this one would be the majority picked. Defensive lineman from Notre Dame. He had 8 sacks in 2018. Huge bodied guy, 6'6", 295, NFL size. He had some pass defense, passes swatted away at the line. He can fight through double teams. He is, he has power and speed for his size. You look at guys that are 6'6", and you kind of think of your J.J. Watt, and I don't know if this guy could be, could resemble the J.J. Watt, but I think that his speed for his size, like that of a J.J. Watt, can be there. So look for that, in there in the middle, a presence that could, swat passes down, that could get to the quarterback, that can stop runs, just kind of a Swiss Army knife, if you will, there on the defensive line. You look at Jerry Tillery, and that's just a smart pick for the Colts at 26. And I think a smarter pick probably than that of, a Byron Murphy. I think that that's kind of a hit or miss. I think that, you'd have to have a lot of faith in a guy like Byron Murphy. It'd have to be a good interview. You'd have to be sure that he would fit. So this one would be kind of more of a no-brainer for the Colts going into it. And something that I could see definitely Ballard doing more than Byron Murphy. Going 34 in this draft was one that I liked too, was N'Keal Harry fell to 34. I saw him fall down here a little bit more than I thought. I thought that he was definitely a first-round guy and probably a first-round guy. But this is the receiver from Arizona State. He had 22 career touchdowns in 3 years, a solid receiver for them. He's 6'2", 228, big-bodied guy. He, for his size, has a lot of high ball skills, strong hands. He can go up and high point the ball, come down with it. He uses his hands to swat away press coverage. So that could be something that, as he's going from college to the NFL, could be a real benefit for him, that he already kind of knows how to do that. So I really like that about him. He had a 4.53 40, so not one of your faster guys like the Terry McLaurin. He, is more of a route runner, and he, gets open by his routes and, just by getting to the ball. So that's something that the Colts would really like. His cons were, just like I said, his speed. It's not necessarily top tier as you look as, the corners and safeties in this league, more and more have 4.4, 4.3 speed. And I don't like to make a lot of the 40-yard dash time, but it's definitely an indicator of what to expect as far as speed-wise. There were some issues with drops in traffic, with, double coverage on him, a couple guys over the middle. There were some issues with him dropping the ball, and not a big red zone threat. He didn't have many red zone touchdowns in his career, and you already have a red zone threat with Ebron, and Ty can be a red zone threat at times. So, maybe you're not looking necessarily for that, but you're always looking for a red zone threat, right? So I think that as he goes in the NFL, they'll scheme him open a little bit more. Going on to the 59th pick of this mock draft was another Notre Dame guy, Julian Love, cornerback. And I think the cornerback position is not as developed as maybe some other Colts fans, some other people. I don't know what Ballard necessarily thinks of it. But you have, like I said in my last podcast, that you have your 3 developed corners, Pierre Desir, Quincy Wilson, and Kenny Moore. But you could be looking for that guy of the future, for that nickel corner that could step in this year as a nickel. And with your 59th pick, that's not investing too much into it, although that's still a high pick. Uh, this guy could come in. There are a little bit of things that I don't like about him. So what I think more for this is don't necessarily look at just Julian Love. I'm kind of more of like the Colts need a corner kind of with this pick. I don't know if it would be Julian Love. I kind of liked him because he was better in zone coverage. He kind of there were not many busted coverages in his resume, so I think that's great. As you know, the Colts didn't give up a lot of big plays last year, so that a guy that isn't used to giving up the big plays like that could come in and learn a lot. I think that he's just needs more of an NFL body. He needs a little bit more weight to him, only at 195 pounds. He needs sometimes he'll probably need over the top help. So look for like Malik Hooker. If they brought on a guy like this guy to help him out, he's only got that 4.54 40-yard dash. So definitely probably less than average for a cornerback in the NFL. So not my favorite pick right here, but I think the Colts probably somewhere between the late second round, third round, fourth round, they're going to need a corner in there, in my opinion. And with their third round pick, this could be another one that I could see that Ballard would do. He had a quote earlier in the season, and he said, "How scared would the rest of the league be if I picked an offensive lineman first round?" Well, I don't think that they're going to pick one first round, but maybe here in the third round, you look for that future answer at left tackle. Michael Dittier, a left tackle, well, kind of a Swiss Army knife offensive lineman from Wisconsin, spent 4 years with them. He's 6'5", 309 pounds. So another big guy like your Costanzo there at the left tackle. He had 10-plus starts as a left tackle, left guard, and a center. So a versatile offensive lineman. That's what the Colts have been known for, is they've kind of recreated guys with your Braden Smith. He was a guard, put him at tackle. Your Glowinski. And you have this guy that, if one of those guys gets banged up, or after this year, you're looking to part ways with Costanzo and want to get a little younger, this could be your answer there. And he's just a consistent pass blocker. Looking at his film, that was his strength, but he's also a good run blocker. And I think that maybe sometimes his speed will get to him as he'll get beat and he won't be able to recover as much on the outside. But for this pick in the third round, he's a great offensive lineman that the Colts should be looking at. If that's what they're wanting to do. I'm not necessarily sure if they're wanting to bring Costanzo back, then this one wouldn't make as much sense. But if you're looking to move on from Costanzo, maybe an offensive tackle here in the late third round could work for you. And that's all that I went through today. I looked through a lot of these. Like I said, there were probably 15 or so that I looked at. And, looking at the other ones that I had here, one of them had Ed Oliver all the way, dropping to the Colts at 26. And, that's obviously a great pick, but I just don't think that that's going to happen. So I didn't really want to spend time on that, a whole lot. Nazir Adderley, a safety, that's another one that could be there at the second round pick, in there. That's another one that I like, along with Jonathan Abram. I kind of went back and forth between which one I was going to pick there in one of my mock drafts. And N'Keal Harry and A.J. Brown were available a lot there at the 34th pick. So I don't know what the Colts are really wanting to do with wide receiver. It's, I don't think a lot of Colts fans know a whole lot about it either. But I think that if you wanted to bring in one of those guys, your answer at wide receiver, you wouldn't have to look for it for a long time. So that could be something that I would really like. A lot of these drafts had, Christian Wilkins dropping to the Colts. I don't know if that's going to happen, come draft day, but if it does, that would be probably my favorite pick for the Colts. He had a incredible resume there at Clemson and somebody that could step in and be a starter right away for you. So that's really it today. I wanted to go into those 3 mock drafts. I did a lot of research on it, and I really think that these are well thought out picks. Some of you might disagree with me, especially on the Byron Murphy pick there in the first round. But just know that I did go in there, and these are my thoughts of realistic pick for the Colts. I didn't just pick them out of the hat or just pick them out of random. There were reasons and thoughts why I did pick them. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I got a lot of support in my last 2 videos that really keep me going, and that's going to help me build this podcast along. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button on this video if you want more. I will be coming out with at least 2 podcasts a week as we move forward into the 2019 season, and I can't wait to get started on this NFL draft. But thanks for listening today, and I'll be back later this week with another podcast. Thanks so much.